Maybe you've read the Bible many times. You've heard it preached. You've studied it. You've taken notes. You know the stories. Abraham, Moses, David. You know the miracles. You know the lessons God left for us in every page. But let me ask you something today. Did you know the Bible contains layers of meaning? Not just simple lessons on the surface, but deeper spiritual truths. Things hidden beneath the words. Things most people, even after a lifetime of reading, have never truly seen. And among all the chapters in Scripture, there is one called the Hall of Faith, Hebrews chapter 11. You may have heard of it, maybe read it before, maybe sat through a sermon about it. But today, I want you to look at it again, because there is something in this chapter that almost no one talks about, a truth that gets skipped over, a layer of meaning that stays buried, and when you finally see it, the way you understand faith will never be the same. Today, stay with me, because what we're about to uncover together in Hebrews 11 might be exactly what you've been missing. Most people think Hebrews 11 is a list of champions, heroes of the faith, men and women who believed God, and God came through. Every single time. You've heard it preached that way. Have faith like Abraham, trust like Moses, stand firm like Daniel. And somewhere along the way, you started to believe that this chapter is a promise, that if you just believe hard enough, the miracle comes, the door opens, the situation turns around. So you prayed, you trusted, you waited, and nothing happened. Or something happened, but not what you expected, not what you asked for. And quietly, in a place you don't talk about out loud, a question started to form. Did I not believe enough? Did I do something wrong? Is faith not working for me? But here's what most people miss. Hebrews 11 is not a highlight reel. It is not a collection of success stories assembled to make you feel inspired on a Sunday morning. Read it again, carefully, all the way to the end, because somewhere in the middle of this chapter, the tone shifts completely. And the people who appear in that second half, they believed just as hard, they trusted just as deeply, and they never received what was promised. So what is Hebrews 11 actually saying? Here is what I want you to see today. There is a pattern running through Hebrews 11 that most people never notice. Not because it is hidden, but because we have been trained to read this chapter looking for one thing: the miracle, the victory, the breakthrough. And when we look for only that, we miss everything else. The writer of Hebrews was not assembling a list of winners. He was showing us something far more profound. He was showing us what faith actually looks like, in real life, in real pain, in real waiting, in real loss. And buried inside this chapter is a truth that will reframe everything you thought you knew about God, about prayer, and about what it means to truly trust Him. Most people read Hebrews 11 and walk away inspired, but a few, the ones who read it slowly, who sit with it, walk away changed. Today I want you to be in that second group, because when you see what this chapter is really saying, you will stop performing your faith, and you will start living it. To understand Hebrews 11, you need to know who it was written for and why. The letter to the Hebrews was not written to people who had never believed. It was written to people who had believed and were now considering walking away. These were Jewish Christians, men and women who had left everything to follow Jesus. They had given up their synagogues, their social standing, their families in some cases. They had accepted the gospel and paid a real price for it. And now, years later, the pressure was mounting, persecution was increasing. The life they had hoped for had not arrived. The promises felt distant. The silence of God felt heavy. They were tired, not rebellious, not angry, just exhausted. And someone was whispering to them, "Go back, return to the old ways. It is safer there." So the writer of Hebrews sits down, and instead of giving them a theological argument, he tells them a story. Actually, he tells them many stories. He reaches back through thousands of years of history, and he pulls out name after name after name, not to impress them, not to lecture them, but to show them something they had forgotten. You are not the first person to feel this way. Abraham felt it. Moses felt it. David felt it. Every single person in this chapter felt the weight of waiting, of doubt, of not yet seeing the promise fulfilled. And yet, they kept going. That is the world of Hebrews 11. Now let's walk into it together. The chapter opens with two brothers, Cain and Abel. Same father, same mother, same world outside of Eden. Both of them knew who God was. Both of them came to worship. Both of them brought an offering, but only one was accepted. Now here is what most people focus on. They focus on what was brought. Abel brought the firstborn of his flock, the best he had. Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil, casual, routine, unremarkable, and the conclusion people draw is simple. Give God your best, not your leftovers. That is true, but that is not the deepest layer of this story. Look at what the writer of Hebrews actually says. By faith, Abel brought God a better offering than Cain did. By faith, not by effort, not by quality alone, not by religious performance. By faith. Abel did not just bring a better gift. Abel brought it differently. He brought it from a place of genuine trust, a deep, settled belief that God was real, that God was good, and that God was worth the very best he had. Cain brought something too. He showed up. He went through the motions. But his heart was somewhere else. And here is where something subtle, something strange, begins to emerge. The writer is not just telling us about two brothers. He is holding up a mirror. Because there are two ways to approach God. You can come with your hands full and your heart empty, or you can come with trembling hands and a heart that actually believes. One is religion, the other is faith. And from the very first story in this chapter, the writer is drawing a line between them. That line is going to follow us through every single name in this chapter. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Move forward a few generations, and you meet a man named Enoch. No dramatic story, no great battle, no miracle recorded in his lifetime. Just one line that appears twice in Genesis. Enoch walked with God. That's it. In a world that was rapidly forgetting God. In a generation where violence was spreading, where people were consumed with their own appetites and ambitions. Enoch walked with God, not occasionally, not on Sabbath, not when life got hard and he needed something, every day, consistently, quietly, and then he was gone. He could not be found because God had taken him away. No funeral, no grave, no last breath recorded, just gone. Now connect this back to Abel. Abel brought his offering by faith, from a heart that genuinely trusted God. Enoch walked with God by faith, from a life that was genuinely oriented toward God. Two different men, two different stories, but the same invisible thread running through both. And then the writer stops. He pauses the list of names and inserts something directly, almost like he cannot help himself. Without faith, it is impossible to please God. Not difficult, not unlikely, impossible. And then he explains why. Because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. Two things, just two. Believe he is real, believe he is good. That is the pattern beginning to take shape. Not a list of heroic deeds, not a collection of impressive resumes. A single, quiet, relentless conviction that God is there and that he is worth it. Abel had it. Enoch had it. And the next man on this list, he was about to be tested in a way that neither of them ever was. Noah had never seen rain, not like what God was describing. Think about that for a moment. He is standing in his field one day, ordinary life. And God speaks to him, tells him a flood is coming, tells him to build a boat, tells him the dimensions, the materials, the design. And then God goes quiet. Noah picks up his axe. He starts cutting wood, day after day, week after week, year after year. Some scholars believe it took him up to 120 years. 120 years of hammering. 120 years of neighbors walking past, stopping, staring. 120 years of laughter, of whispers, of his own children growing up in the shadow of something that made no visible sense. There was no ocean nearby. There were no clouds on the horizon. There was just a man, and a boat, and a word from God. And here is what the writer of Hebrews says about him. By faith Noah, When warned about things not yet seen, in holy fear built an ark to save his family. Things not yet seen. Noah could not see the flood. He could not see the rain. He could not see any evidence that what God said was true. But he built anyway, not because he understood everything, not because it made sense to the people around him, but because he had heard God speak, and he had decided that was enough. Now stop here. Abel, Enoch, Noah, 3 men, 3 completely different situations. But look at what they all share. None of them had visible proof. Abel could not see whether God would accept his offering before he brought it. Enoch could not see where his daily walk with God was leading. Noah could not see a single drop of rain. They all acted on something invisible. They all staked their lives on a voice they could not record, a promise they could not verify, a God they could not put in a box. And that is when something much larger begins to come into focus. This is not just a pattern about 3 ancient men. This is a pattern about something God has been doing since the very beginning, something he is still doing right now, possibly in your life. There is a word the writer of Hebrews uses at the very beginning of this chapter. Most people read past it, but it contains everything. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. 2 words, substance, evidence. In the original Greek, substance is hypostasis. This is not a soft word. This is not a feeling word. In the ancient world, hypostasis was a legal term, and it referred to a title deed, a document of ownership, something you could hold in your hand in a court of law and say, "This belongs to me. I have the papers." And evidence. In Greek, elenchos, a word used in legal argument, the kind of proof that stands up under cross-examination, the kind that cannot be dismissed. So when the writer says faith is the substance of things hoped for, he is not saying faith is a warm feeling in your chest. He is saying faith is a legal document. You are holding title to something that has not arrived yet. The deed is in your hand. The property has not been built, but the ownership is already yours. This is what Abel understood when he brought his offering. This is what Enoch understood when he walked with God day after day with no dramatic confirmation. And this is what Noah understood when he picked up that axe on a cloudless morning and started cutting wood. They were not being naive. They were not ignoring reality. They were operating in a different legal reality, one where God's word is the highest court, and his promise is already the deed. Now let's bring it all together. Abel, Enoch, Noah, Abraham, Sarah, Moses, Rahab, and then the ones the writer cannot finish listing: Gideon, Samson, David, the prophets, the martyrs, people who conquered kingdoms, and people who were sawn in two, people who received their dead back to life, and people who died waiting. For a long time I read this chapter and I saw 2 different groups: the winners and the ones who didn't make it, the ones God rescued and the ones God didn't. And I didn't know what to do with that. Maybe you don't either. But here is what the writer reveals at the very end, the thing that changes everything. These were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised. All of them commended, none of them received the fullness of the promise, not yet. And then this: God had planned something better for us, so that only together with us would they be made perfect. Stop. Read that again. They are waiting for us. Abraham is waiting. Moses is waiting. The woman who received her son back from the dead, she is waiting. The man who was sawn in two and never denied his Lord, he is waiting. Waiting for the story to be completed. Waiting for us to run our portion of the race. This is the pattern. Faith is not a transaction. You do not deposit belief and withdraw miracles. The faith is participation in a story so much larger than your single lifetime that you may not see the ending from where you stand. Abel did not see it. Noah did not see it. Abraham died without seeing it. And yet, the writer of Hebrews calls every single one of them victorious. Because in God's economy, faithfulness is not measured by what you received. It is measured by whether you kept holding the deed, whether you kept walking, whether you kept building. even on a cloudless morning, even when the laughter didn't stop, even when the promise felt very, very far away. Maybe that is where you are right now, not in rebellion, not in unbelief, just standing in a field with an axe in your hand, looking at the sky, no clouds, no rain, no sign that what God said is actually coming. And the laughter around you has been going on for a long time. Maybe it is a marriage that hasn't healed, a prodigal child who hasn't come home, a diagnosis that hasn't changed, a prayer you have prayed so many times the words feel worn out. I want you to hear this. The silence is not absence. The waiting is not abandonment. And the fact that you are still here, still holding on, still showing up, still bringing your offering even when it costs you something, that is not weakness. That is exactly what faith looks like in Hebrews 11. Not the highlight reel version, the real version. The version where ordinary people, exhausted, uncertain, sometimes afraid, kept walking with God anyway. Abraham is in that stadium right now. Noah is there. Rahab is there. The martyrs are there. And they are not looking at your results. They are looking at your direction. Keep walking. Keep building. The deed is already in your hand. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Hebrews 12:1.